All right, everyone, we are back with one of the profiles from Nats coming out of the weekend. So we have Pete's Soul Striker list, and this was like the first deck I wanted to play. And massive props to you, dude, because you actually played it and did better than what I thought the deck could do in Nats, especially going up against Icarus, going up against Soul Surge, and going up against the Xeno Gogeta match. All three very difficult matches, I'm sure. But anyway, I will completely hand over to you, good sir, and give us a rundown on what you played, your techs, the stuff that's just generally staring us in the screen here. But
pretty much.
Please shut me up so you can talk.
all good. Thank you, Tom. So hey guys, it's Pete here, NWP. As Tom basically described just in the small intro, I ended up piloting Blue Yellow, as you can see, Soul Striker for the 2021 Oceania Nationals online. Funny with how Tom said he was considering playing it. I was very back and forth between this Icarus and Helku, or Yellow SS for Goku for you guys that don't know. I was almost going to play Yellow SS for Goku for the event, then the last the night right before it, I was back and forth, got up the morning, and I'm like, I'm sleeping Soul Striker. I'm going to play Soul Striker. I have a feeling that this is basically what I should play today, and it paid off and everything.
Definitely.
Even though I kind of thought to myself, there's probably going to be a lot of Xeno Gogeta, probably a lot of people maining hate for this deck, but we'll get to where basically a couple of the cards that I played to kind of counteract that and to make up for that being the case. So all right, so. As you guys probably already know what this leader does, but for you that don't, Soul Striker. Actually, let me basically flip him the other way. All right, so basically unawakened, swings, draws one, or basically has a untap a mono blue energy instead. Most of the time you're drawing a card. Then at 4 or less life, or when you have a specified 3-cost unison in play, you get to awaken and draw 2 cards. And flip this card over. You flip this card over. This is where this leader's a powerhouse. When it attacks, draw 1 card, and then switch up to 2 of your mono blue energy to active mode. So it basically lets you extend your plays and kind of gives you that safety net in a sense that you could, worst case, play something that gets counterplayed sweet. You untap 2 energy. So not that you should rely on that, but it's just a nice kind of extra safety net. And not that it's very relevant at the end of your turn. Switch one of your blue unison cards to active mode.
Yeah, I remember that was originally designed with that Goku Black Unison because it had blocker, but...
Yeah, exactly. But since then, we've gotten basically a lot more broken Unison since then for this blue. So I'll actually start off with them. I'll start off with my Unison lineup since we're in basically a card block or set block for releasing X cards for this game at the moment, and a meta where Unisons are pretty important. The first one, baby, the Unknown Parasite. Draw 1, basically play it on 3. It actually upticks 2 markers, which is nuts. I assume most of you know what this does. Draw 1, basically activate main, then the broken effect. Neg 5, if your leader card is blue, you make it a finisher, gains 15k dual attack. Then basically until the start of your next turn, all your counters in your hand are free by choosing up 2 other cards in your hand and discarding them. So for example, if you didn't have the Unison on board, you could still activate God Sealing. You could still activate this Ape, which we'll get to this one very shortly. Your Deem Magics, if you're tapped out, if you didn't want to take the life, but most of the time you take the life. So yeah, very nutty card, and I think a staple. Not only like for this deck, and honestly for like most blue decks that can facilitate it. The second one I played was SS3 Gogeta Super Warrior Evolution. Essentially, compared to the baby, he's a dual attack 20k beat stick that for activate main -1, you can choose 2 of your opponent's battle cards and return them to their hand, which is the main effect I cared about. You can play it 2 or less Saiyan, but not that was very relevant, if that makes sense. And then it does have the cute permanent here that if you have a blue Saiyan, if your leader card is a blue Saiyan and you have a blue Saiyan card in rest mode, your opponent, you don't take damages from, direct towards your leader, which actually did come up. So it did kind of put my opponent in a weird position where they need to get rid of this. Now, I mostly played this with another sideboard card. Mostly you see in the sideboard, but I decided to main deck it. This card, the Son Gohan and Piccolo are skill sharpened. Now, this was one of my techs that I decided to go with in this deck. Basically, it's the anti-silver bullet card that if your leader card is blue or green, and you discard this card from your hand, you can choose up to 2 of your opponent's battle cards, which cost 3 or less, and place them at the bottom of the enemy's decks in any order. So this takes care of if you come up against Xeno Gogeta. The 1-drops that essentially hurt this deck, especially the 1-drop Vegeta that hurts your opponent, that makes your opponent warp a card once per turn during another player's turn for untapping with any ability. The 1-drop Goku that taxes for activating counters, a true fighting spirit duo. Because in my opinion, blue doesn't lose to that deck because of the big beat sticks they play. It's because of the taxing, 1-drops.
The little 1-drops that just rip your hand apart.
They are so stupid. The fact they have deflect, then they're not unique. They're not unique. It's like silly. So I decided to go with 2 copies of this, and coupled with the unison, I was able to out all the silver bullets that my opponent played against me, intended for this deck, and that actually paid off huge. And one of the reasons I'd done so well.
Yeah, awesome.
And then the last unison basically we played, again, probably, not much needing to be said. AOD, Majin Buu unison, absolute powerhouse. In a nutshell, for those of you that don't know, you play it on 4, double strike blocker. He essentially draws you a card and untaps you an energy at the start of your opponent's next main phase. So this becomes a 3 cost, but when you swing with lead, it becomes a 1 cost that turn, which is nuts. And then when your opponent attacks with a battle card during that turn, you may choose one of the battle cards and bottom deck it. It essentially means while this is on board, you say no to most bombs in the game that your opponent wants to play to try and kill you with.
Yeah, that baby is such a pain to deal with.
It really is. I think it's probably a little overtuned, but look, we play blue. I'm a blue player, so I'm going to use this card. Then next, basically, what should we go with? I'll go with the super combo lineup. I went to Vegeta, 4 or less, bottom deck 1, draw 2, super combo. Just for a bit more draw power. I went to Zamasu. This worked out very well because I guess a lot more people when they come up against yellow decks, I'll play around this, but against the blue deck, people don't expect this card, or they expect it less. So I played this for that extra surprise factor / to help facilitate with my rivals.
Yeah, like did you find that without having the Zeno super combo, which is your typical lineup, like a 2-2 split between Zeno and Vegeta, did you find you were like at any danger of tapping yourself out without any way to restand?
Not really, to be honest. I kind of made sure, because I wasn't running the Zeno, not to tap out unless I knew I was safe. And funny enough, the 3-drop yellow Goku that yellow decks usually side in has become less and less popular because now there's a lot more outs to it, just like the Kef I'm about to show soon, even though it has barrier. So I kind of felt more safe to play this card compared to maybe the previous format and everything over the Zeno. So, and for those of you that don't know, if your leader card is blue or yellow, when you come with this card, you get to tap one of your opponent's leader cards or battle cards. So you can I was able to really punish some people that swung with other things and didn't respect this card, and I tapped down leaders a few times and other battle cards. So
in the mirror match, I'd imagine, I don't think you had a mirror, did you?
No, I didn't. There weren't too many Soul Striker players, to be honest. I think all in all, I literally maybe saw one other guy, maybe max another 2, and that's it.
Yeah, I only know of one other person that played it, but I know firsthand in the mirror match, being stung by that, or just playing this leader and being stung by that is so crippling, because then you lose your draw 1, untap 2, so you can't extend.
Exactly. So, definitely I think going forward I would keep this card over Zeno. If maybe certain other cards became more popular, then I might shift back to Zeno, but this card's just, at the right time, it can potentially end a turn, so really stuff up your opponent's turn. So I definitely like that, and now, being blue-yellow Soul Striker, let's go over some of the multicolor cards we've played. Now, I'll go over quickly, the facilitating or the extra support card. So, Goku and Hit. Basically, this is a free blue-yellow arrival facilitator, or facilitating combo card. If you have another blue-yellow multicolor card in your energy, so it's just there for to enable the free arrivals and everything. During your combo steps, you don't have to do a blue and a yellow. And the other basically, and how we were basically charging blue-yellow most of the time, I would either do one of those, or one of the 4 Zamasus here, or Vegeta and Carvers. You never wanted to charge Kefla because of the
No, never.
she's your finisher and you want to see additional copies of her throughout the game, yeah. But I'll go to the next card, basically. Zamasu the Eliminator now. I guess most people know this card was very powerful and defined the format, last format, before set 15, before the set 15 ban list. It obviously had its power put down a little bit to a more, acceptable level, but it's still a very good card. Essentially, if you have another blue-yellow multicolor card in your energy, you can negate its energy exhaust, charge this in active mode. And this has basically steal the counterplay. When this card if the card being played, if it's a battle card being played that has energy cost 4 or less, it's returned to its owner's hand. So it can stop a 4 or less, which helps with if you want to go in for game and your opponent tries to floodgate you with a battle card, you can return it to hand, continue. And then when this is played, you draw one card and choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and switch to rest mode. So it's basically a sharp of the trickster for you, those of you that may remember, on crack. So it's definitely a very good card. This actually did help me stop things like Freezer Robotic Riposte, other big threats. Like I actually rested an 8-drop Dragon Fist Goku that's popular in Olympics and everything at the moment. So yeah, this card was very handy. And this deck, you only really need one blue-yellow multicolor card charged. Just turn 1, maybe worst case turn 2, and that's you're pretty set for the rest of the game. You only need one, multicolor charged to facilitate this and to have the, yellow, for the rival Kefla here. But we'll get to her in one moment. We'll go over the first arrival card, the cheaper one. So basically, I played 2 copies of Vegeta and Carver Lessons Learned. Dual attack 19k, roll for a blue or a yellow. When this card is played, basically choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards that equals up to 4 or less energy. Bottom deck it. This was nice. I'll admit though, maybe going forward, I may just cut this entirely. Funny enough, I've been going back and forth a bit. This kind of came up maybe twice throughout the entire tournament. It didn't come up too often, and I actually cited it out a lot. So I think maybe as a 1 to 2 of it's probably fine and everything. But if otherwise, I don't think I ever really got to a point where I needed this. It was always usually charged turn 1. Or turn 2 latest, or comboed off or sided out. But it's still a decent card. I mean, if your opponent doesn't respect it, you can blow them out with this.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a bit of a funny card. Like this deck, essentially, we'll get to it shortly. The Kefla is basically your main card you want to be arriving in. But this is kind of like a little Kefla. It's not bad.
It's a little Kefla.
In a sense, like it costs basically a third of the energy, and obviously has a third of the effect. But and everything.
Like I will agree with you there that like it's nowhere near as good as what Blue used to have, because a lot of people I reckon saw this as a replacement for Bojack, in that like Forecast comes out during battle and it's got dual attack and pings something off the board, but this is just so much more watered down in the fact that it's 19k, not 20k. And it has to hit something in rest mode that has a cost of 4.
I think that's probably my biggest gripe with it. The fact the card has to be in rest mode kind of just like it makes it a little lackluster in my opinion. Like with how much energy manipulation this deck has with the leader untapping, with Beam, D-Magic, all that stuff, the general good blue stuff, I'd rather just pay another 2 energy and roll in Kefla. And it's just protected with God Sealing.
Very fair point. I'd agree.
And everything. So that's where I'm at with this card. I honestly am thinking of cutting that, just putting this up to 4 because it's a free combo as well, and more chances to see a turn 1 to just charge that. And honestly, that's like 12 along with the super combo, 14. You never want to charge a super combo, but that basically 4 there, 4 there, and 4 there makes 12. You're going to see at least one multicolor card in your opening hand. But yeah, so that's where I'm at with that card. Now, basically to SS2 Kefla Lightning Speed, aka Universe 6 Bay.
Universe 6 Bay.
Basically, where do we start with this card? It's kind of like one of the main reasons why anyone is playing Soul Strikers blue yellow instead of mono blue. Along with the Zamasu being a very good card defensively, but this double strike blocker, rival blue yellow, 2 blue, 1 yellow. Basically, when this comes in, you get to bottom deck mid-battle any of your opponent's battle cards. I'm ignoring barrier. which is so busted. It hits so many things. It gets rid of the yellow slug again. That Icarus plays, ignoring barrier.
Yep.
Gets rid of Sun Goku Absolute Annihilation, the 3-drop that we mentioned before that taxes you for activating extra cards. Gets rid of 8-drop thwarting if you don't want a God Sealing it and give them false hope.
Gets rid of Marvelous Might.
Marvelous Might, exactly. Anything barrier, it basically means my opponent can't go in with any card in the game. Unless the card says it can't be removed by skills, which it's pretty rare, but yeah, so this card's an absolute powerhouse. And not just that, it's a blocker on top of it. And the broken thing about it is you basically rival it in. You want to rival this in during your opponent's turn when you know they won't be able to remove it. Say they've gone in for one last attack and you know it's a last attack. You bring this in, and then basically during your turn, limit 1, discard another copy of it. Or basically, actually, when you choose a card, you can discard any card. It'll still gain dual attack. But if you
ideally a copy of it.
Ideally, a copy of it. Yeah. If you discarded another copy of it, you draw 2 cards and choose up to one of your opponent's cards, switch it to rest mode, which can be any card in basically the battle, energy, leader for whatever crazy reason. If there's a blocker leader, but I don't think that's very relevant. Unison area,
Xenosin says hi.
Xenosin, but nobody's really worried about that deck, right? Tom? No, I'm kidding.
I will prove them.
For those of you that don't know, that's one of Tom's pet peeve decks, but all good. That's another story for another time. Anyways. Yeah, so basically, you can essentially, if your opponent has left only 1 energy open, or even 2, just being able to tap one of their energies is so powerful, and then 30k double strike. Like, dual attack base. Like, enough said, this card helped me finish games, and it's definitely like an absolute house and one of the main reasons and everything that I won basically half my games, so and everything. Now, this is probably where one of the MVP cards of the day, or what card I really thought about that I could put in this deck that could help facilitate and make sure that I got a Kefla during my opponent's turn onto the board. Instead of them potentially playing around my rivals and attacking my unisons and me defensively not being able to get to the combo step, I opted to play 4 of this Goku.
I was interested about that choice.
Yeah, that was actually the reasoning why. So Sun Goku Calamity Challenger, for those of you that don't know, in a nutshell, if your leader card's a blue Saiyan card and you have 3 more energy, this is a 1-drop deflect blocker battle card that you can play that's 15k that draws your card. And I kind of thought to myself, what blockers are cheap that I can play that will allow me to defend and get to the combo step instead of my opponent just attacking my unison so I can't rival in Kefla during that turn. I thought to myself, this card. Basically, will fit the bill perfectly. And it actually did. Like at points, I had like 2 to 3 of these on board. And that's coupled with this on board as well, which in one of the games against one of the Icarus players meant I wasn't taking damage and they needed to either clear this or clear this. So it kind of put him in like a funny situation, a bit of a lock. So definitely there's no downside to this card whatsoever. It does everything for you. I actually think low-key this card's very underrated. Snapped in my opinion.
I'd 100% agree. I mean, the last regionals that we had before Nats, I got 13th place playing Mono Blue Soul Striker, and this card was MVP of the day almost all day.
Exactly, and I mean, worst case scenario, you can be like another beat stick to push your game. Mike doesn't draw your card.
That's how I used it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Going against blue or going against yellow, and I didn't want to get it tapped or get it God Sealinged. All right, 1 energy, deflect, draw a card, swing 15k.
Funny enough, this card also helped me play around Poutine as well. And like, cool. When they just rested with Poutine, now I've got a Saiyan rest. So it actually made their Poutine pretty neg. Which was pretty funny, but no, definitely, I think if you want to play an rival strategy and your leader cuts a blue Saiyan card, you want to play 4 of it. So it just it lets you get to the combo step how you want to. Then honestly, guys, other than a couple of cards I'll mention in a sec, everything else is pretty straightforward. 10-drop Fu, I probably don't need to explain this card. One of the best bombs in the game.
Been around for a long time.
Yeah, overall since set 3. Yeah, since set 3. Still being used now. Overall for 6 energy, 10, basically at least 10 cards in warp. Switch off all of your opponent's effects for 2 turns except their leader. In double strike, it finishes the game. Basically, this this or that, basically. Negging 5 represented 6 damage on the kill turn that my opponent could not stop.
Yeah, that's
blue,
nasty.
And being blue with like this secret rare that I assume all of you know, Hachiak, negate the attack, basically switch off your opponent's turn, meant I was getting to 6 energy and everything. So 2-8, basically, broken card, blues counter. When this card is played, you can bottom deck one of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, triple strike. This helped me win a game to get at least a draw in a horrendous matchup for blue, which is Soul Surge, which came in very clutch. Yeah, this card's super duper good, so we ran 2 of that. For Mikey's, warp from your drop to draw 2, chalk and cheese. Sorry, I meant to say bread and butter, like we know this deck, or you basically can warp it, tap 2, draw 2, swing the leader, untap 2, draw another card. So in a sense, you've drawn 3 for like 0 energy, which is pretty snapped. Not pretty, it is snapped. I don't think
it's very snapped. Let's not beat around the bush with it.
Maybe I'm trying to sugarcoat it so Bandai doesn't hit Soul Striker. Come on, Tom. Yeah, you work with me here. Anyways,
they're making it as like one of the, I think it's like 1st or 2nd place for Worlds, like a metal leader of it. So I don't think they're touching it.
No, it's actually in the next collector's binder.
Oh, they're reprinting it there as well, but Worlds has one. Anyway, we digress. Back to the profile.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think there is. But yeah, then for Bane, 3D Magic, which honestly, I tried 3D Magic and one Chilled's Army Reinforcements. This card didn't really come up, so it should have just been 4D Magic, to be honest.
It's kind of interesting though when you think about it, because when I was testing, I did a 3-2 split, so I did 3D Magic, 2 Chilled Army Reinforcement, mostly so that I could get that blocker on board without any energy requirements whatsoever.
I guess basically I found this redundant because I was running 4 of this.
Yeah, I suppose, and that's the big difference, because when I played it, I didn't have any of those in there.
Yeah. Then one of the cards that came in clutch, honestly, was actually Oceania, especially against Icarus. This is essentially the set 14? Yeah, the set 14 Black Floodgate. That what it does, you negate the attack, choose a card in your hand, discard it. Negate the attack. If you play this card, your opponent can't attack for the duration of their turn, unless they place 4 cards on top of the deck into their drop area, which Icarus cannot play through this card. And yellow, outside of the counter cooler, cannot stop this. Tyrannical Blow, even if this card gets its skills negated, sure, the Floodgate effect is still gone off. Yeah. This actually helped me win, basically, what was it? Yeah, both of my Icarus matchups. And what else? When my opponents tried to push for game, a couple of them actually tried to play through this, and they just nearly decked themselves out. I'm like,
really?
They did.
Took the challenge.
They took the challenge, and they got punished for it. And this actually, honestly, against my last round opponent playing King Bigelow, this was just another way to bait out their counter plays. And being blue, you tap 2, but you never tapped out because you have D Magic and stuff like that. So it's basically fine. That card was very good. Now, the other kind of like cheeky tech I tried for the day, Absolute Confidence. Now, this card has 2 effects. Activate main or battle, choose one. Choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards when it costs 3 or less, return it to its owner's hand, and draw 1. Choose one of your opponent's units and cards and remove a marker from it. I was expecting a lot of Icarus, and I did verse 2 Icarus. It didn't end up happening, but my whole theory behind this card was if they tried to play the 3-drop Trunks Unison and they wanted to clear my board, they'll obviously want to be greedy and swing a couple of times first. There's not very much interaction with Unisons mid-battle in this game. And then if they basically swung into me, I was going to go, cool, activate battle, remove a marker off the Trunks Unison, and now unless they have another copy in their hand, they cannot do the next 3.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Yeah,
so you found it didn't come up, or?
It didn't come up because the way the games went and how I controlled the games against those players, pressuring them, I don't think they never ended up playing the 3-drop Trunks Unison. It's either it was going to put them in a bad spot because they weren't going to have enough energy open the way I was playing, or it just didn't come up for them. They just opted for other plays and everything. So, because I guess I always had God Sealing Life to stop anything wanting to pop my cards, and with this I was able to protect my Unisons pretty well. So Yeah, but I tried it as a one-off. Like, would I main deck it again? Maybe, but I didn't.
It seems very specific.
It seems very niche. I probably won't main deck it. I'll probably take this out. So cards for consideration to take out potentially. I'll change that and then this, and everything. But yeah, that's how I went with that. But coming back to this card, if I had to say, like, this card honestly was like one of the MVPs basically.
Yeah.
For me, across the entire tournament, I came up against Gohan Icarus every just about every what's what Gohan Icarus player was mainly the Whis that hurts you for offensively untapping or proactively untapping during your turn with effect. Yeah.
I didn't.
Bottom deck. Sorry.
I didn't.
You didn't. You are a kind soul, Tom, and thank you. But to everyone else playing that to hurt my deck that I adore here, you are not very nice people. I'm only kidding, but it is, I mean, understandable. People will respect this deck, so that's why. But then I also respect their silver bullets, so I may try out an answer.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, this just came in very clutch. Like in case I came up against Xeno Gogeta, I wanted to have a main deck, and honestly, like, having 2 copies of this card was actually just perfect. Like, if I came up against Xeno Gogeta, I had a good, basically, chance at beating that deck. Again, if I saw this card to get rid of the 1-drops.
Yeah, good stuff. And, like, I feel with this one, we really need to give Birdo props because he's been, raving this card for so long.
Yeah, no, 100%. Birdo's one of our teammates that basically also plays Soul Striker. And, yeah, talking about deck text with everyone, he was big on this card. I've been big on it as well. Like, 100%. Shout out to Birdo as well. But yeah, this card, funny enough, not that I was expecting it, but this actually came up against my last round opponent that played King Piccolo, and it actually helped me run away with a deck. Run away, against that deck. I'll run away with a game against that deck. Sorry.
We got there.
I'm like, what? We got there. Like, what's the saying again? So yeah, help me run away with a game against that deck because, funny enough, I didn't realize this card destroys King Piccolo. Yeah, because most
you
of the
just
boards
bottom deck everything.
Yeah, and I was basically bottom decking his it literally bottom decks all their deck. Basically, get rid of the pianos, the tambourines, that swing a couple of times dual attack, and yeah, no, this card came in very clutch. So definitely one of the MVPs. As I mentioned before, Kefla the other MVP, and Tendril Fu. It's like helping me essentially close out the game. Now onto the side deck. 3 Dabura essentially for any hand control decks. Enough. I assume most of you know what this does. They make you discard a card, you play this for 1, draw 2. Secret Identity for a bit of extra removal for just any pesky little boards, essentially. Another Oceania for any aggro matchups or for any decks that go wide. 2 Koiz guys for basically
Yellow.
Mostly yellow with Robotic Riposte. Even though, to be honest, I kind of have Robotic Riposte covered with Zamasu and God Sealing, but just more to kind of punish them. If I want anything to stop me from, killing them. Yeah, Koiz guy is there for me. He was there for me. 2 max power, just for anything random that before I could get my removal online, like SS3, Gogeta Thwarting, Dark Empire, so stuff like that. Another Gohan Piccolo, which I actually sided this in a lot to ensure I saw them to out the silver blots of the deck. 2 Mechis for essentially anything I didn't want to deal with on next turn. These came in pretty clutch as well. Again, Xeno Gogeta or anything spammy, just Kai's, basically on the turn that would try to play 1-drop or play anything. I knew that I would basically do this. They couldn't swing with any 2 or less battle cards, I was pretty safe. And then just a bit of extra removal in the Go Tanks unison for anything barrier-wise. If somehow, by whatever, miracle for my opponent, I wasn't able to see my Keflers and everything. Yeah, just basically out anything annoying like a slug or whatever else. If they played another one after I would have gotten rid of it the first time, and etc. So.
And like, you think you'd do that over something like Barrier of Hope? Like, just for the 2 extra swings?
Yeah, I probably would, because the crappy thing about Barrier of Hope is that although it draws you 2 cards and you get rid of the card, it bounces it back to hand. This one just straight up bottom decks it, and they just don't see them again. And it does too. For an extra.
Yeah, that's a very fair point as well. Awesome.
And then basically matchup wise, round, let's see. Round 1, I had a bye from getting top 1 one of the previous regionals early in the year. Round 2, I came up against Gohan Icarus. Super nice guy. He was playing more of a spammy, aggro, hyper-aggressive, skillless build. Basically Oceanus and my rivals and everything, got me through that game, and then Kefla to finish him off. Game 3 was against Cell Surge. Lost game 1, came back won game 2, and because of the new time rules, we're just going to finish game 3, so that ended in a draw. Game 4, I came up against Golden Freezer. I lost that one 1-0. We were in game 2, we couldn't finish the match. My main reasoning, I guess, game 1, what ended up happening was I went second, and on curve I didn't see my unison, and I didn't really get going with my deck until turn 4, turn 5 onwards. By that point, that guy was establishing a board that I didn't have God Ceilings live earlier on or anything like that to kind of like get rid of them. And I didn't have a main deck out to the 5-drop Deflect Freezer that
Divine
only very niche
Transformation.
card. Yeah, Divine Transformation. Only very niche cards in blue can get rid of that card. So basically, I needed my sideboard for that. So yeah, I lost game 1 because. And then basically, game 2, I sided in cards that I needed to. I was in control of the match. I was in the driver's seat. I think if I was able to finish that match, I probably would have won, but we couldn't. So ended up being a loss for me, sadly. Then I came back and soldiered on, won the next game against Gohan Icarus, and then won the next game, the last round game against King Piccolo. And was able to get top 16. So I had a record of 4-1-1.
Awesome, solid effort, dude. All right, well, that pretty much wraps us all up. Again, awesome for you to be sharing this. It really is a solid deck. Like, no two ways about it. Like, the deck is solid, and like, would you say it has a fairly high skill cap to actually pilot something and sequence things correctly?
I 100% think it does, especially being blue-yellow, and against the meta at the moment. Like, sure, Kefla is a broken card, but if it's not arrived in at the right time and its effect used properly, it can just be like any other card that your opponent can deal with very easily.
Yeah.
And obviously, swinging either with something first, leader first against whatever decks. A lot of people think it's just swing this leader, untap 2, brain dead deck, but it's actually not. There's a lot of intricacies against other matchups and where you should either swing with X first or this first, and where you should God Ceiling, where you should roll this in, where you should use the Masu. I think definitely this how can I sort of put it? This deck rewards basically proper sequencing and taking advantage of basically extension that allows you to do with untapping 2 with lead.
Awesome, good stuff. All right, well, we'll wrap it up there, and thanks everyone for sticking around, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Thank you.